Please, I trash your party. You hate Trump, Biden shot it. You tell every kid you see that you are gay. Science makes you mad, indictments make you glad. For 8 years now we've got 'em, that's all you said. Biology is just too much, so the doctors cut off your nuts, and you think that you are a babe. You call me names and swear at me because you changed the way you be, and I don't want to live your fantasy. I know I'm right, you're fucking crazy. And tonight I'm gonna prove just how much you ain't too bright. You're kinda lazy. I know you're wrong, I know I'm right, you're fucking nuts. Welcome to this week's show. Let's start with the invitations. I always invite the loony left to my show, so let's get this kicked off. Invitations. I always invite the loony left to my show, so let's get this kicked off. Let's see. This guy spent 2 days just telling Grumpy Farmer and I that we were just big poopy heads. So, what? How about people quit messaging me while I'm trying to do my podcast? That would be awesome. There we go. Oh, nope. Get rid of that. Oh. Because people have to mess around while I'm doing stuff, because it's important that copy. Alright, there we go. Now I got the right link. Control V. There we go. Let's go this one. I'm using new stuff this week, so if it's kind of choppy or whatever. And of course, oh yeah, we know Mr. Cheese Doodle here. I send him one every week. No one's going to show up, but alright. Now we got Facebook. These are all loony leftists, by the way. I don't invite people who think like me to come over. Why? What for? They already think like me. We're not going to change anybody's mind, but they're entertaining, aren't they? The list gets longer, too. The more they say stupid stuff, the more I feel the need to invite them over just to entertain myself. Because you know. So I'm using new software and stuff. Yeah, this. So, new techniques. The Atlas Society. This guy went all day. Communist wannabes who don't know shit about communism, but. Oh, let's see here. There we go. And sometimes I look forward to it too much because I get to gripe, and once the work's done, and C2. There we go. All right, F6 or F4. Okay, there we have. You notice I have a script. So, anyway, has anyone heard? Oh, wait a minute. Now that the work is over. Has anyone heard that some people in the military are calling for a draft? Not the military either. Some people in the government as well are calling for a draft. Some of it limited draft, some of it because, well, let's see. Let's see here. Let's get to where we got to be here. Have a listen to this.
We need a limited military draft. 11 Clemson University Air Force Reserve Officers Training Corps cadets take the oath of office during their commissioning ceremony, May 10, 2017. Ken Scar, U.S. Army Reserve. The opinions expressed in this op-ed are those of the author and do not necessarily reflect the views of military.com. If you would like to submit your own commentary, please send your article to opinions@military.com for consideration. It's time to change how our country fills the ranks of our military. Since 1775, our nation has used a combination of volunteers and draftees to meet our national defense personnel needs, especially in times of crisis. Today, the military needs only about 160,000 youth from an eligible population of 30 million to meet its recruitment needs. But after 2 decades of war, both of which ended unsuccessfully, and low unemployment, many experts believe the all-volunteer force has reached a breaking point. And American confidence in its military is at a low. The fastest and most effective way to resolve this recruiting crisis is to change how we recruit. Instead of either an all-volunteer force or a fully conscripted force model, I propose a both-and solution. We should have our military recruiters sign up new troops for 11 months out of the year. And then have the selective service draft the delta between the military's needs and the total number recruited. This model would alleviate the incredible pressure on our recruiters, lower the cost of finding new troops, and significantly reduce the much-decried civilian-military gap by subjecting all of America's youth, rich and poor, to the possibility of military service via the draft. This increased public interest might also have the added effect of increasing public pressure to prevent open-ended wars led by unaccountable senior leaders like we experienced in our national debacles in Iraq and Afghanistan. While the causes of our current recruiting crisis are many, the fastest and best solution lies within our already existing selective service system. This would obviously represent a seismic change, given the more recent history of military drafts. In 1973, the draft was abolished with the establishment of the all-volunteer force, driven largely by the American public's weariness with our debacle in Vietnam. Systemic inequities in the draft, e.g. wealthier Americans being able to defer service, and the fact that the size of our population had become so large in relation to the needs of the military. Universal drafting became obsolete. While the all-volunteer force had the effect of lowering discipline problems and professionalizing the force, it also created a vast gap between American citizens and those who serve, effectively creating a military warrior caste that now appears more like a multi-generational family business than an organization that represents the true makeup of our democratic republic. The establishment of the all-volunteer force also drove the military to expend an incredible amount of resources in terms of manpower and dollars to build a recruiting machine to attract America's youth to service. Considering it costs about $15,000 to recruit each new member, the overall cost each year exceeds $2 billion. And recruitment has risen and fallen with the national unemployment rate. The causes of this crisis are many, and both politicians and our national leadership are largely to blame. For nearly a decade now, feckless politicians, using the military as a club to batter their opponents, have exacerbated increasing negative public opinion despite the fact that our military has crushed international terrorism and prevented another large-scale attack on our homeland for 22 years and running. Despite this success, in 2023, every service except the Marine Corps is poised to miss its recruiting goals. In 2022, the Army alone fell short by 15,000 recruits. The needs of the nation must be met, and our national leadership would be wise to reinforce the idea that military service is an important responsibility of citizenship. While conscription has always been a controversial issue throughout our history, a hybrid model would alleviate our current military manpower crisis, increase the connectivity between the American public and its military, and more responsibly use taxpayer dollars. Holes in our military formations are, in fact, gaps in our national security.
This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of the annual purge sanctioned by the U.S. government. Weapons of Class 4 and lower have been authorized for use during the purge. All other weapons are restricted. Government officials of ranking 10 have been granted immunity from the purge and shall not be harmed. Commencing at the siren, any and all crime, including murder, will be legal for 12 continuous hours. Police, fire, and emergency medical services will be unavailable until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. when the purge concludes. Blessed be our new founding fathers and America, a nation reborn. May God be with you all.
I have an idea. How about we take the voter rolls and the welfare rolls, $1.03 trillion per year, and do some house cleaning? Who'd you vote for? Sniffy Joe. Well, Joe Biden. Trump is add insult here. Oh, good. Here's your rifle. The fun is that way. All these guys who aren't paying their child support for umpteen fucking kids, don't throw them in jail. Ah, don't worry. It'll come right out of your check. Good luck. Good thing. If you get killed, your kids get benefits until they're old enough for the draft. You'll be helping the people of Europe and your family at the same time. Way to vote, fucktards. And of course, you have the gender ideology cult, who are joining now to get the health care to have their shit cut off, who are non-deployable, useless as rubber lips on a woodpecker. There's a call to have trans men, in other words, women with a mental illness, to sign up for the draft. Why not just have women sign up? They wanted to be in combat roles. Get your ass down to the post office. Actually, I think you can do it online now. Put your money where your mouth is, you man-hating feminists. You're just as strong and as tough as men are. Let's see it. Some are, most aren't. That includes men. I'm using the dictionary term, they barely are.
Ding, 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 ding. There he sits inside the local coffee shop, sporting a main burning facial hair. Somehow he believes, although he has no job, that by his 30s he will be a millionaire. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A. Gotta love millennials. posts lots of selfies on her Instagram with the quote that's inspirational. Hopes to change the world while wearing yoga pants, armed with her dreams and knowledge of essential oils. MILLEN, NIA, gotta love millennials. MILLEN, NIA, gotta love millennials. 27 years old, trying to make it on their own. Maybe start by leaving your parents home, but maybe we're just wrong. Criticism isn't easy for their ears. They feel like they know most everything. See, they grew up with undeserved confidence, 'cause they got trophies just for participating. MILLEN, NIA, gotta love millennials. MILLEN, NIA, gotta love millennials. In a couple of years, we will have to pass the torch. In a couple of years, they will be in charge, and one will be our president.
Holy fuck.
MILLEN, NIA, gotta love millennials. MILLEN, NIA, please pray for millennials.
I still like my purge idea better. Monday, I saw the greatest quote. Arresting someone for claiming our elections are rigged doesn't seem the smartest way to prove that your elections weren't rigged. 81 million votes. I'm not saying anything. I'm just thinking out loud.
Are you fucking getting it yet?
And Monday, Grumpy Farmer brought up this study that I'm going to play because I have the audio for it, about the women and the job interview social experiment.
They did an experiment with a group of women, and they put scars on their faces, and they told these women that they're going into a job interview, and the purpose of the experiment is to find out whether people with facial disfigurements face discrimination. They showed them the scars in the mirror. The women saw themselves with these scars, and as they led them out of the room, they said, we're just going to touch it up a little bit. And as they touched it up, they removed the scarring completely. So the women went into the job interview thinking that they are scarred, but actually being their normal
You know you're in a
selves.
cult if.
And the result of the experiment is that those women then came back reporting massively increased level of discrimination. Indeed, many of them came back with comments that the interviewer had made that they felt were referencing their facial disfigurements. And this is why I think this ideology of victimhood is so dangerous, because if you preach to people constantly that we're all oppressed, then that primes people to look for that.
You know you're in a cult if. 4. You believe victimizing yourself is powerful.
This is how CRT makes people money. If they can pound into your head that you're a victim, the pharmaceutical companies make a fortune handing out those puberty blockers and hokey pokies. Doctors make a fortune cutting people's shit off, or trying to make shit out of nothing. BLM, buy large mansions, made a fortune off donations. I guess they're going bankrupt now. Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of people. Yet people still believe they're bullshit. And your leaders, they're supposed to be your employees, but your leaders maintain power because they are going to protect you from the evil oppressors. It's called a cult, folks. Cult leaders wield a great deal of power and make money off your dumb asses. That's why CRT is being pushed so hard in our schools. And yes, folks, this gender ideology bullshit, that is part of CRT. They need to create more victim groups. That's hard to do in a country as rich as the United States. Take, for example, Kendi, the supposed socialist who makes $300 a minute. not an hour, a minute, telling people, for example, teachers, how America is systemically racist and it should be a socialist country because socialism is less racist. All while he's making $300 a minute off all you cult members. Al Sharpton makes a fortune off you fucking idiots.
The victims of the Democratic playing card deck. This group makes up the core of the voting element as far as the Democratic Party goes, and thus helps the most to promote the leftist cause. These are the people who think they've been wrong or disadvantaged, or have been told that they've been wronged or disadvantaged. They're also being told that the opposing parties, Republicans and conservatives, are out to wrong them and disadvantage them even further. These are the things commonly referred to as playing the race/age/gender/class card. This is used very often by liberals, so get ready to hear a lot of it. It works, it is effective, and this second group of people, the victims, falls for it very easily. As a result, they become slaves of the liberal mindset. Look no further than how the Democrats
uglier than a hat full of assholes.
Republicans are holding them down. How the Democrats try to scare middle-class Americans into thinking Republicans are hurting the middle class, and how the Democrats try to scare women into thinking Republicans are against their rights. Democrats also frequently try to scare senior citizens into thinking Republicans want to destroy Social Security. Look at the key words mentioned in these accusations: against, holding down, hurting, destroying. In essence, it is fear-mongering targeted at certain groups of people in society, and it works. These Democrats and leftists attempt to spin the issues into backing up this fear-mongering, and people listen to it. And as a result, this entire second group is formed the victims of the Democratic playing card deck. These people often do not know much about the issues, especially as far as fact and reality goes. What they think they know, however, is that Republicans and conservatives are completely against them and trying to hold them down, or their issue, in general. They believe the way they do because of the total spin and fear-mongering they hear from Democratic and liberal leaders. They then go out and vote for these said Democrats, and become strong leftists, mostly out of fear and loathing of the other side values instilled into them. Furthermore, they become very likely to start calling conservatives bigots and racists, because of the lies that the liberal left has drilled into their heads.
I'm scripting these podcasts a little more because actually during the week there's a lot more I'd like to talk about personally instead of playing a bunch of videos like I did last week. Sometimes I forget stuff. That's what happens when someone gets old. I do have the advantage. I don't sound like Fetterman or Sniffy Joe. Even with a teleprompter, Sniffy Joe sounds mentally incompetent. Repeat line. The thing about Fetterman, he's had a stroke, so you can feel some sympathy for him. However, these loony leftists do what he's doing because they think it's a good idea. I post a newspaper article, video, or some numbers or statistics, and they just, Fetterman.
And the Eagles are so much better than the Eagles.
still Fettermaning, I see. For those who don't know, Fettermaning is a verb. It is babbling incoherently on a subject, normally giving responses that have nothing to do with the questions being asked. Generally caused by brain damage from listening to other loony leftists for extended periods of time, it is one of the leading symptoms of TURD. Example. What has Sniffy Joe done for the country? Fettermaning. Well, Trump once got a traffic ticket back in 1973. I asked what Sniffy Joe has done for the country, and you started Fettermaning. Other willingness to accept that Donald Trump made America great again. TURD. Resistant to treatment, and dangerous in large groups. Any possibility of treatment requires that they be separated from their hive mind support apparatus. They cannot begin the process of accepting reality in the presence of encouragement towards delusion and irrationality.
You can't really type with this system.
Separation may require the assistance of law enforcement. Basically, it's talking around the elephant in the room. If they had to answer this truthfully, they'd have to admit a horrible truth. Why did you vote for Sniffy Joe?
Because you're a fucking idiot.
Horrible truth. Because they're fucking idiots.
So the best way to get
you know you're
done,
in a cult if
you hold
39 will lose your shit when someone says you're in a woke cult, and to prove you're not, you do the things on this list over and over and over.
I keep giving these loony trying to get these loony leftists to come over and defend their position in real time. I guess they don't want to call names and throw fits in real time. Now this was too funny, so I just had to share it. Can you say term limits? I knew you could. Can you say term limits? I can't believe these loony leftists are still holding on to the collusion hoax. I can't believe these loony leftists are still holding on to the collusion hoax.
Trump, Putin, Russian collusion.
Trump, Russian sort of collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion. Trump, Russian, metal collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, potentially collusion.
Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, collusion. Trump, Russia, Russian collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion. Russian hacked our election. Here comes a big change. Because all of a sudden, Trump, Russian, possible collusion, Russian collusion.
Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible
Exactly how I dance.
collusion.
Collusion with the Russians. Trump, Russia, possible collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion. Prove collusion. Prove collusion.
Was there collusion?
Absolutely.
Trump, Russia, possible collusion. 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 Trump, Russia, potential collusion. Trump, Russia, potential collusion.
And the Kremlin and be in collusion with Putin. And the Kremlin and be in collusion and Putin. And the Kremlin and be in collusion with Putin. And the Kremlin and be in collusion. This president in collusion with Putin. And the Kremlin and be in collusion. This president in collusion with Putin. And the Kremlin and be in collusion.
All 17 intelligence agencies.
17 agencies.
17 of our intelligence agencies have confirmed.
17 of our intelligence agencies.
17 intelligence agencies.
17 different United States intelligence agencies.
All 17 of them.
I was having a wonderful, peaceful conversation with this guy named Anthony Weiner. I don't know if you're familiar with the guy or not.
Yeah.
He's a very, interesting
I saw
guy.
that podcast.
Yeah. So, and I asked him a question where I say, so let me ask you, how good are you at giving blowjobs? And he looks at me like, kind of a freaking question is that? He says, I'm sorry? And I said, yeah, how good are you at giving it? He says, no. I said, when you were 11 years old, did anybody teach you how to give one? No. Why would they teach me that? That's what they're teaching in schools right now in many different places. Oh, they're not doing that. There's no way they're doing that.
There
right?
are books that do show that. Yeah.
There are books, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if a person wants to sell that book at Barnes & Noble, go for it. If a person wants to sell that book on Amazon, go for it. But what do you think about parents that are protesting all over the place where in some districts, these guys are saying, no, this is recommended reading by the teacher and it's normal, it's okay, you should learn about this at an early age. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's very clear that there are certain teachers that have an agenda and that their agenda is to indoctrinate children.
Groomers.
LGBT mindset. And that this is not just cherished, but celebrated. And, if you're talking to someone who is a gay kid, great. That's great. If you want to tell them that it's okay to be gay and, you should be your true self, great. That's terrific. What my concern with is that a lot of what we're seeing with New Jersey had an uptick in kids identifying as non-binary by 4,000%. It's not natural. These are not normal numbers. And I think children are very malleable. They're very impressionable. And if you reward them for certain kinds of behavior, if they are praised and cherished for certain types of behavior, I think they'll be encouraged to do that.
It's called grooming.
With a lot of these detransitioners, that a lot of these kids got encouraged early and got put on hormone blockers and hormones and got mastectomies and got castrated, and now they have deep regret. And people don't want to acknowledge that, and they attack those people. They attack those detransitioners. We have always thought that young children are not capable of making life-changing decisions at an early age. That's why we don't allow 7-year-olds to get tattooed. Right. And now all of a sudden you're allowing 7-year-olds to say that I'm a girl or I'm a boy, cut off my breasts and put me on testosterone.
Yeah.
That's craziness.
What percentage of parents do you actually think, obviously we don't know the exact number, but what percentage of parents, left, right, middle, think that's okay? What do you think that percentage is?
That's interesting. I would not know. I would just be wildly guessing.
What do you
but there's
even if we guess,
a
what would you
certain amount
say?
of people that are in the progressive mindset that is essentially a cult. There's cult
exactly,
right? And on the left,
absolutely,
it's cult thinking. It's conglomerations of opinions that you adopt and you defend because that keeps you in the tribe.
and the LBGT, whatever the other numbers are in letters,
Mm-hmm.
what that is it's a flag that you're flying to show that you're on the right team, that you're progressive, you're open-minded, you're on the right side of history,
Yeah.
you're inclusive. This is what they're doing. And that has an effect on people psychologically. I think you should allow people to be who they are, and you should be open to people being who they are no matter what it is. But to encourage them to go in a specific direction, I think there's real repercussions for that. And I think you're seeing that with these detransitioners.
You think it's 1%, 5%, 10%, 15%? You think it's 20 plus? Like if you were to guess,
I don't think it's 20 plus.
I don't think so either.
I think it's a vocal minority. The same thing with people that think that trans athletes should be able to compete with women and biological women in women's sports. It's a very small, very loud minority.
Do you think that's kind of like, let's just say I'm your friend, okay? And we're out at a restaurant. And you know how there's the guys that all of a sudden somebody's going to say, Joe, you're picking up a topic, we're having dinner, we're having a conversation. Hey, what do you think about voting this way? And one of your friends, this guy feels like I have to agree with 100% of what Joe says because it's Joe. Joe's my boy. Joe said this. Joe, you're 100% right. And then you got one of your friends like, I don't know if I agree with you, man. I think it's this, and you're having a debate. Do you think there's a part of the political party where they feel like just because I'm a Democrat, I have to agree with 100% of everything they're pitching me?
There's a bunch of people like that. Yeah, there's a bunch of like full-on cultists, and they're blue no matter who.
Yeah.
And that's their mind, and in their social circle, like this is how you talk and communicate. And, I've had conversations with those people, particularly when I was in L.A., and when you confront them with facts, they're in denial. First of all, they don't know the facts. They're in denial about it. They think that what you're saying is propaganda, that what you're saying is bullshit and conspiracy theories. I remember when I first started talking to Jordan Peterson about that bill, what is it, C-16, that's up in Canada, that is a hate speech law that mandates you using whatever the person's preferred pronouns are. And at that point, there were like 48 different preferred pronouns that were going to mandate. And people are like, why are you concentrating on that? This is something that exists in colleges. This is not something in your world. Like, why is that of concern to you? Because people graduate from college and they take these ideas they've been indoctrinated with, and then they enter into the workforce. And that's what we're seeing. And that's what killed Bud Light. That's literally what killed Bud Light. That they tried to enforce these ideas that they had been ingrained with in these educational institutions, and then they tried to put it out there in the world.
Yeah. So Joe, how old are you? You're
55.
Okay, I'm 44. Okay.
I'll be 56 in a couple of weeks. So
you'll be 56. Well, you look great for a 56-year-old. I'm just looking at your place. You're walking around, walking behind you. I'm like, holy shit, this guy's in shape. So, but okay, 55, you're going to be 56. From your experience at this age, when did you and I care the most about what people thought? What age were you when we cared the most about what people thought?
When I was a kid.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
So how little do you give a shit about what people think about you today?
Well, I don't want people to be wrong. I don't want people to have an incorrect opinion about my position on things or who I am.
But do you lose sleep at night
No.
with people? Okay, so that's the point. So
I don't give, actually, I give less than a shit.
Enormous amount of
As long as my fucking check arrives on
Let's
time.
not pick people like you and I. Let's pick a regular guy. One of your guys out there, that I won't mention names, that, he's always with you. Do you think he cares more at 42 years old what I think about him?
Less.
Less, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's life experience, right?
So let me ask you this question. As a 55-year-old man, if you were really gay right now, Joe, would you care about coming out?
I wouldn't, but I do have friends that are my age that do care, and it's sad.
Okay.
But they're worried more about how their family is going to perceive it and how their family's going to be treated about it.
By the way,
Still doesn't require a fucking parade.
Public announcement right now. Joe Rogan and Patrick Bet-David came out, and
we're both getting married.
We're both getting married. Who takes whose last name? So
we'll hyphenate it like good progressives. When I see a dude with a hyphenated name, I'm like, yo, bro.
Yo, I got a hyphenated last name, Bet-David, but I understand Rogan Bet-David or Bet-David Rogan. So I want you to think about this. The part where I go is the following. The statistic, traditionalists, 0.8% are gay. Boomers, 2.6%. Then it goes to 5 point something. Then it goes 10%.
I'm Gen X.
Oh, yeah. Gen Z's right now is 21%.
How much of them are regretful?
Do you want to pull this? Jamie, can you
21% gay?
21% of Gen Z right now is gay.
Is it gay or LGBTQ?
All that stuff.
Because you can be non-binary and slip right in there with like a real fucking loophole.
Check that out. Look at that right there.
Number of LGBTQ identifying adults is soaring. Yeah.
Look at that.
Non-binary.
Boomers
basically ugly virgin.
Millennials 10.5. And then you got Gen Z's around 21%, right? Okay. So when you look at the statistics, why would Gen Z become gay? They care about what other people think. This is like, it's kind of versus the traditionalist. Dude, if I'm like 72 years old and I'm gay, guess what? I'm coming out.
Right.
I'm like, hey, man, I am. What do you want to do about it? I'm going to go and hang out with Jose over here.
Yeah,
and
leave me alone.
Leave me alone. Do what you got to do. So I think, we're truly messing up with a generation that really cares about what other people think, and we're screwing them up.
It's called attention seeking.
Growing up in a time of social media where caring about what other people think is way more enforced because you're getting so much more feedback than people have ever gotten before.
Yeah.
Like a regular person might just be communicating with thousands of people in comments and arguing about things on social media in a way where you would not interact with so many random people that you don't know.
Yeah. And even that's a good point. Like even the social dilemma thing, kind of like where you're going, where these kids are so worried about what other people think.
Yeah.
I think it's a big mistake, and I think we're going to pay a price for it. And it's going to take us a decade or two to see the results of this.
I think so too, and I think there's going to be a self-correcting thing. What I fear the most is the detransitioners. I feel terrible for them. I feel terrible for these girls that can never have children now, and I feel terrible for these guys that are castrated. And it's just the whole thing is just very spooky because people are making life-changing decisions. Now, does that mean that I'm anti-trans? Not at all. If you're a grown adult and you feel like that's going to make you happy, I fully support your ability as a grown adult to do whatever you want, as long as it's not hurting anyone else, that makes you happy.
Sure.
And if that makes you happy, I don't know what makes you happy. If that makes you happy, I am a freedom person. I believe you should have freedom to do whatever you want. However, I do think that there's an indoctrination aspect to this, and I do think there's a social contagion aspect to this, and that's what Abigail Schreier has documented, and that a lot of these girls that are coming out, they're doing in these clusters of girls, and a lot of them are autistic, a lot of them are, they're on a spectrum, and they don't feel like they fit in anyway. When they give them testosterone, a lot of times there's an alleviation of anxiety that comes with testosterone and a euphoria that comes with that, and they say, okay, this is who I've meant to be. Which is so crazy that introducing a foreign substance into your body, or at least a substance that your body does not naturally have at masculine doses, and that you're introducing that to a feminine body and then saying, this is who I naturally am. That's crazy. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense biologically, scientifically. It doesn't make sense.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.
Exactly, Grumpy. It's child abuse. It's exactly what it is. But because we celebrate it, right? The parents get attention through, what do they call it? Munchausen syndrome, right? If they pretend their kids are sick, right? Oh my God, my kid thinks he's fucking a girl, or it's a boy who thinks he's a girl, then they get attention. Look at Jazz Jennings. Her mother has a television show now about her daughter, but she's famous. Oh my God. And I had to share this one because I thought the loony left was against election interference. Now, wouldn't ignoring the testimony of crackhead Biden's business partner for this be election interference? Remember when the news reported the news and didn't do campaign commercials for the other side?
Thank you for being with us this morning, and we'll begin the week
with the latest on former President Donald Trump. Trump's. We heard from Trump.
Donald Trump, Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump, Donald Trump's mouth.
Trump advisors,
The Trump situation, Trump's.
President Trump.
Remember, this is while crackhead Biden's business partner was testifying.
Trump as it relates to Trump, Donald Trump, and that's Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump himself, and Trumpism.
Donald Trump's Donald Trump.
Yeah, Trump is.
I'm Donald Trump.
Hang on. So Donald Trump's Donald Trump still ahead on Morning Joe. Donald Trump plus. We've got Trump plus Trump. That's former President Trump. Let's start with former President Trump.
Donald Trump, the Trump world.
Donald Trump.
Trump train. Donald Trump.
With Trump. Trump's
election interference.
As always, thank you for joining us this morning. And still ahead here on Morning Joe, Donald Trump.
This is one fucking program, folks. Holy shit. Then there's this one. I almost spit my coffee all over my computer watching this one. This one is cool. Where is it?
Anyone can come to the U.S. Absolutely. Go to the Statue of Liberty. What's it say? All is welcome.
No, it doesn't say that at all.
Okay. I just happened to pick up 3 guys from Honduras. Well, they were at Home Depot. They're from Honduras, and they have nowhere to go. So this just works out perfect. Look, Hector takes medication twice a day, and right now they got to use the bathroom. All 3 of them. Is it cool if they stay here? No. Why not? What do you mean? I don't know them. Who are they? So they can't stay here then? It's cool if they come to the country, just not your house? No.
Yeah, welcome to the Looney Left's hypocrisy. And I'm not a Jason Aldean fan. When I was in a band, I played a couple of his songs, but that was just, But this is funny shit. Now, I can understand why the Looney Left doesn't like the song. It's all about shooting people who assault police and burn shit down. 2 things the Looney Left are fucking known for.
Oh my god, I almost died. No. It was so scary.
Let me play that again.
Oh my god, I almost died.
That is so funny.
I almost died. It was so scary.
Oh my god, fucking god, that's hilarious. Okay. And Looney Leftists, if you think a militia can overthrow the government, then you don't know anything about tanks and jets. Really? You keep claiming the government was almost overthrown by a bunch of unarmed people walking through a building. Fascist!
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the U.S. Capitol building. If you've joined us today for the insurrection, please make sure you pick up a promotional leaflet on the way in, stay inside the safety cordons at all times, and if you get lost, speak to one of our Capitol Police officers. They'll be sure to point you in the right direction. And be sure to set aside a little time today to join us for some insurrection activities, including our photography tour, our fancy dress competition, and have a go on our climbing wall. But don't forget those safety ropes. And I've now received the results of our fancy dress competition. The winner today is Jacob Chansley. That's Mr. Jacob Chansley. If you could report to your nearest Capitol Police officer, they'll be sure to give you your prize, a guided tour of the building. And some great news just in. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has agreed to pose for...
Yep, and do you know how much an M1 tank costs? That's $8 million a pop.
So, thank you for joining us today for the insurrection.
I did the figuring, and we've given them an estimated $64 billion.
And enjoy the music of our very own fancy dress competition winner.
You know, I invited that douche nozzle over from Instaface, you know, the one that basically called us a poopy head for 2 days. Haven't seen him, so obviously he doesn't believe in his convictions as much as he, for some reason, I guess they don't want to come over and call us poopy heads in real time. Anyway, I was thinking about all these people that I sent that "you're in a cult if" for grooming and mutilating children. Do you know what none of them have ever done? Ever. They've all mentioned Trump. They've all called me names. But do you know what they've never done? They've never denied that they groom and mutilate children. Even your standard everyday pedophile will try to deny it. They brought up Trump, they brought up religion, but no denials.
You know you're in a cult if 1. You believe you are what your imagination says you are. Delusional, characterized by or holding false. 6. You believe reality isn't real. Delusional, characterized by or holding false beliefs or judgments about external reality that are held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary, typically as a symptom of a mental condition. You know you're in a cult if 10. Thanks to Jamie Lee Curtis, who didn't know how many Oscars she'd won, them can't count. You know you're in a cult if 11. You will cry in protest to take a real black woman off a syrup bottle and a Quaker off a box of oats named Quaker Oats, only to put a fake white woman on a beer can. All while saying, I can't believe you're so upset over a... 18. Lost your shit over To Kill a Mockingbird and Huckleberry Finn, but are screaming about banning books with gay sex and masturbation in school libraries. You know you're in a cult if 21. Being so filled with hate, you will groom, mutilate, and murder your own children, all while calling your opposition fascists. You know you're in a cult if 25. Will refer to a biology book as right-wing propaganda. You know you're in a cult if 26. Will lose your shit if someone actually uses proper English, instead of your made-up pronouns. You know you're in a cult if 32. Are the same people who say you can't indoctrinate kids to be gay with a book or a drag show, but continually accuse the church of doing that very thing. Although religion isn't taught in schools, and you're not forced to go to church. You know you're in a cult if 33. When someone is simply talking science and common sense, you will try to bring religion into it. Well, you know the church. Well then, don't go to church. It's not against the law. Not going to school is.
I have video evidence of all this shit, and they just deny it when I show the videos. Oh, that ain't happened. Dude, it's a fucking video.
You know you're in a cult if 34. Will use unrelated behavior to justify their sick, grooming behavior. You know you're in a cult if 39. Will lose your shit when someone says you're in a woke cult, and to prove you're not, you do the things on this list over and over and over. You know you're in a cult if 46. Consider chemically castrating a pedophile horrible and inhumane, but chemically castrating a child just dandy.
I saw this one on Thursday, and it perfectly sums up the choice you really have. If you're too stupid to use the more than 12 methods of birth control in the United States, which includes a morning after pill, we shouldn't be killing the baby. If you're too stupid for a morning after pill, a pill you can take after sex, 8 hours, you're too stupid to be having sex. Planned or unplanned pregnancy for people that fucking stupid is how we got here in the first fucking place.
Always ask me, Brandon, are you pro-choice, pro-life?
say, man, I'm pro-life and pro-choice. Let me tell you why. Because I believe that women do have a choice. The choice is just not at the clinic. It was in the bedroom. You had a choice when you was doing a thing. But also you have two other choices. You can have your child, you can keep it, people will support you, people will love on you, but you have another choice. You can allow God to use your situation to bless another family. People who cannot have children, that would love to take your baby in and love your child. There are choices, but we can't be afraid to tell the doggone truth.
Let me give you some money saving tips when it comes to this topic. One, if you're a woman and you don't want to get pregnant, don't let losers come inside you. If you're a man who does not want to pay child support, don't come inside fucking losers. There, I think we solved that. Now, freedom of choice according to the loony left. Can I choose how I defend my body and or my family, i.e. the Second Amendment? Loony leftist. Nope. Can I choose whether or not to wear a mask? Kind of dated, but loony leftist. Nope. Can I choose whether or not to receive an experimental drug? Loony leftist. No, you're a horrible person. Can I choose what my children learn and don't learn in school? Loony leftist. Nope. Can I choose where my tax dollars are spent, i.e. $500 million to Planned Parenthood or $25 billion to Ukraine? Loony leftist. Nope. Well, what can I choose? Loony leftist. Your gender and whether or not to kill your baby.
Are you fucking getting it yet?
I had one loony leftist try to claim that Trump was on Epstein's list. He's been accused of raping girls by a girl who dropped the charges twice. I saw that case. She dropped it twice. Do you know how I know that's bullshit? Don't you think that if Trump's name was on that client list, that shit would be on the internet and all over CNN and MSNBC every fucking day? Especially now with crackhead Biden's shit coming out?
Hospital tested, clinically proven bullshit.
I just saw the perfect description of the climate change scam. The most powerful government in the world, the United States, monetarily and militarily, can't solve homelessness, but somehow they can change the Earth's temperature if you just send more taxes.
Are you fucking getting it yet?
You can't hear that enough, really.
You got people like this around you. Country's full of them now. People walking around all day long, every minute of the day, worried about everything. Worried about the air, worried about the water, worried about the soil. Worried about insecticides, pesticides, food additives, carcinogens.
It's pretty sad when a fucking comedian is the smartest one out of the whole group.
Saving endangered species. Let me tell you about endangered species, all right? Saving endangered species is just one more arrogant attempt by humans to control nature. It's arrogant.
Grumpy, they ain't even close to fucking getting it yet.
Doesn't anybody understand that? Interfering with nature. Over 90%, way over 90% of all the species that have ever lived on this planet, are gone. They're extinct. We didn't kill them all. They just disappeared. That's what nature does. They disappear these days at the rate of 25 a day. And I mean regardless of our behavior. Irrespective of how we act on this planet, 25 species that were here today will be gone tomorrow. Let them go gracefully. Leave nature alone. Haven't we done enough? We're so self-important. So self-important. Everybody's going to save something.
Yeah, I think we need to get rid of fucking warning labels and let nature take its course.
And the greatest arrogance of all, save the planet. What? Are these fucking people kidding me? Save the planet? We don't even know how to take care of ourselves yet. We haven't learned how to care for one another. We're going to save the fucking planet? I'm getting tired of that shit. Tired of that shit. Tired. I'm tired of fucking Earth Day. I'm tired of these self-righteous environmentalists, these white bourgeois liberals who think the only thing wrong with this country is there aren't enough bicycle paths. People trying to make the world safe for their Volvos. Besides, environmentalists don't give a shit about the planet. They don't care about the planet. Not in the abstract, they don't. Not in the
better, now I can see it a little better.
A clean place to live. Their own habitat. They're worried that someday in the future they might be personally inconvenienced. Narrow, unenlightened self-interest doesn't impress me. Besides, there is nothing wrong with the planet. Nothing wrong with the planet. The planet is fine.
The people are fucked.
Difference. The planet is fine. Compared to the people, the planet is doing great. It's been here 4.5 billion years. Did you ever think about the arithmetic? Planet has been here 4.5 billion years. We've been here, what, 100,000? Maybe 200,000? And we've only been engaged in heavy industry for a little over 200 years. 200 years versus 4.5 billion. And we have the conceit to think that somehow we're a threat? That somehow we're going to put in jeopardy this beautiful little blue-green ball that's just a-floating around the sun? The planet has been through a lot worse than us. Been through all kinds of things worse than us. Been through earthquakes, volcanoes, plate tectonics, continental drift, solar flares, sunspots, magnetic storms, the magnetic reversal of the poles, hundreds of thousands of years of bombardment by comets and asteroids and meteors, worldwide floods, tidal waves, worldwide fires, erosion, cosmic rays, recurring ice ages, and we think some plastic bags and some aluminum cans are going to make a difference? The planet isn't going anywhere. We
are. Pack your shit, folks.
Pack your shit, folks. We're going away. And we won't leave much of a trace either. Thank God for that. Maybe a little styrofoam. Maybe. Little styrofoam. Planet will be here and we'll be long gone. Just another failed mutation. Just another closed-end biological mistake. An evolutionary cul-de-sac. The planet will shake us off like a bad case of fleas. A surface nuisance. You want to know how the planet's doing? Ask those people at Pompeii who are frozen into position from volcanic ash how the planet's doing. Want to know if the planet's all right? Ask those people in Mexico City or Armenia or 100 other places buried under thousands of tons of earthquake rubble if they feel like a threat to the planet this week. How about those people in Kilauea, Hawaii who build their homes right next to an active volcano and then wonder why they have lava in the living room? The planet will be here for a long, long, long time after we're gone, and it will heal itself, it will cleanse itself, because that's what it does. It's a self-correcting system. The air and the water will recover, the earth will be renewed, and if it's true that plastic is not degradable, well, the planet will simply incorporate plastic into...
Imagine all those condoms.
Earth plus plastic. The earth doesn't share our prejudice towards plastic. Plastic came out of the earth. The earth probably sees plastic as just another one of its children. Could be the only reason the earth allowed us to be spawned from it in the first place. It wanted plastic for itself. Didn't know how to make it. Needed us. Could be the answer to our age-old philosophical question, why are we here?
Plastic, asshole.
So, the plastic is here, our job is done, we can be phased out now, and I think that's really started already, don't you? I mean, to be fair, the planet probably sees us as a mild threat, something to be dealt with, and I'm sure the planet will defend itself in the manner of a large organism, like a beehive or an ant colony can muster a defense. I'm sure the planet will think of something. What would you do if you were the planet trying to defend against this pesky, troublesome species. Let's see. What might... viruses. Viruses might be good. They seem vulnerable to viruses. And viruses are tricky, always mutating and forming new strains whenever a vaccine is developed. Perhaps this first virus could be one...
Unless the vaccine does it for you.
...compromises the immune system of these creatures. Perhaps a human immunodeficiency virus, making them vulnerable to all sorts of other diseases and infections that might come along. And maybe it could be spread sexually, making them a little reluctant to engage in the act of reproduction. Well, that's a poetic note. And it's a start. And I can dream, can't I? See, I don't worry about the little things. Bees, trees, whales, snails. I think we're part of a greater wisdom than we will ever understand. A higher order.
Aliens.
Know what I call it? The big electron. The big electron. Whoa. 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 It doesn't punish. It doesn't reward. It doesn't judge at all. It just is. And so are we. For a little while. Thanks for being here with me for a little while tonight. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You want to know how fucked up things are? Our government just affirmed the existence of UFOs, and everything else that's going on has gotten us so desensitized we just don't fucking care. Anyway, IQ test, there you go, but then the common sense tests, like, can you read a fucking clock with hands? Can you write in fucking cursive? I don't use stick shift because, like, you know, even smart people can't drive those in the States anymore. But can you go shopping by yourself? Do you have a TikTok account? Because if you do, you're probably a fucking idiot. I like 4 of them today alone. I keep asking these loony leftists with the Ukrainian flag on their profile pictures, when they bring back the draft, are they actually going to go and fight for Ukraine? Or are they going to puss out like their grandparents did in Vietnam? Because you know them motherfuckers didn't go. Holy shit. And then I found this video clip by Colion Noir. A little about him. I'm not going to try his real name. I'll just call him by a screen name, Colion Noir. But he was born in 1983. He's an American gun rights activist, a lawyer, and the host of his own web series called Noir. Now, me personally, I don't like the term gun rights activist. We already have the right. How about constitutional activist? So...
So, it's come out that Biden is going to be using his executive powers and direct ATF to issue a rule that would essentially ban the private sale of guns. You see, last year, 14 Republicans in the House and 15 Republicans in the Senate voted with the Democrats to pass this bipartisan Safer Communities Act.
Thank you. There is a split in the Republican Party. 14 Republican senators voted to advance the bill. 34 voted against it. In the House, you've got Steve Scalise whipping votes against this. Yet at the same time, Mitch McConnell says this is a good bill. Listen to how he...
Rhinos.
This time is different. This time, the Democrats...
This motherfucker doesn't even know where he is.
...and agreed to advance some common sense solutions without rolling back rights for law-abiding citizens. The result is a product I'm proud to support.
You know, Chris Murphy, the senator from Connecticut, and I have worked before on this very difficult issue.
And above all, we all agree we are not finished. We are not finished. We are not finished.
Now, everyone in the government tried to warn these goofy Republicans who voted for this law that it was a Trojan horse and that Biden and the anti-gun lobby were going to use it to push even more gun control. And sure enough, that's exactly what's happening. What these goof troop Republicans didn't realize is that this law shifted the definition of firearms dealer to include not only people who derive their cheap livelihood from selling firearms, but also anyone who earns a profit from selling a firearm.
And
it's been 3 months since President Biden issued his executive order for
another thing we need for voting, their corn cob,
engaged in the
ID.
Selling
that would be helpful.
That move would, of course, increase background checks.
Well, it's certainly not enough. What the president has said is that he's going to get as close to universal background checks as he can under the current law. We changed that law last year. We clarified who has to perform background checks.
So, if you're just selling a gun to a friend or a family member, you're going to be treated as if you're a gun dealer and would have to get a federal firearms license and have to perform a background check on the gun you sold or face up to 5 years in jail and a $250,000 fine. This would ban the private.
Does anybody understand what it takes to get a Class 3 license?
Willing to obey the law. Clearly, criminals don't give a shit about a federal firearms license. Crazy thing is, the vast majority of mass shooters actually got their guns legally with a background check. This is nothing but a backdoor way of getting universal background checks. First of all, universal background checks don't even work, as recent research has found that over 10 years, universal background checks had no effect on gun homicide or self-deletion rates in the state of California. Second,
I wonder how many of those Chicago shooters went through a background check.
Everyone to register all of their guns, thus creating a national gun registry. Because if one criminal sells a gun to another criminal, and then an agent asks the criminal if he got a background check for that gun, and the criminal says, yeah, I did. How else would the cop be able to tell if the criminal was lying but for having a national database of all the guns to check it against? So, not only does a universal background check not stop criminals from getting guns, the only way it can remotely be effective is to create a legal database of all the guns. That's called a national gun registry, which we all know will inevitably end with a gun confiscation. And if you don't think that's their goal, I would like to present you this video from Senator Julie Morrison.
If I get to keep it, if I pay a fine and register it, then how dangerous is it in the first place? Why do you need the ban at all? You use and you purchase, or be purchased.
Well, you've just maybe changed my mind. Maybe we won't have a fine at all. Maybe there'll just be a
communism. They're going for communism, you fucking idiots.
They won't call it a confiscation. They'll just call it a buyback.
Not you guys, but
buyback
those,
will be mandatory,
that senator.
Which is a confiscation.
Do you believe in the mandatory buyback of quote-unquote assault weapons? And whether or not you do, how does that...
Holy shit, this cackling cunt.
Second Amendment.
Yeah. Great question. I do believe that we need to do buybacks, but we still have to deal with the over 2 million assault weapons that are currently in the streets of America.
There's no such thing as an assault weapon.
It's a good idea. Now,
my hands and feet are assault weapons.
You know, buy back and give people their value, the financial value of what they have, and not just take things from people that have value without compensating them.
Right now, the rule is in draft form and expected to be announced later this year. After the announcement, there will be a public comment period. I need every single person watching this video to comment on that rule the moment that the comments are open so that we can shut this nonsense down.
Remember though, Donald Trump is a dictator, a fascist, a tyrant. Remember to find out where to comment on this law and write over and fucking over.
Fuck off, Pastor Houston!
And just for a little humor.
In this town, you can't talk about gay people. Everybody gets all worked up. Stop it. They're sensitive. Why? Because they suck dick? Stop it. Okay, because they suck dick, they get to have a parade and fuck up traffic for 3 days. What the fuck is that? Girls, y'all suck dick, where's your parade? Right. Where's your parade? And don't get it twisted, I'm not homophobic, okay? I'm just saying, okay, I ain't willing to take a 15-mile detour so little bunny foo-foo can walk up and down the street going, yay for dick, I like it in the butt. Now when gas is $2.23 a gallon, fuck you, Bubbles. Go suck dick in your bedroom. I ain't got no problem there. Just get the fuck out of the road. And gay people just take shit that used to be everybody's and make it gay. Remember when you was a kid, you used to draw a picture of your house, you put a nice big rainbow in the sky? Gay. They done took the rainbow. I want the rainbow back. You can't have the rainbow, goddammit. We didn't vote on this shit. I didn't get an email. Fuck you, greedy bastards. How many colors do you need, goddammit? You already got pink, and now you need the whole fucking spectrum? Jesus Christ. And what the fuck does a rainbow have to do with sucking dick anyway? Ain't like it's magically delicious, huh, girl?
If that ain't funny, I don't know what is, but it's honest too. Get the fuck out the road. No one gives a shit. One of the loony leftists I invited this week dug out this oldie but a goodie. Trump is a tyrant and a fascist. I dug out some stuff. It would appear Biden is more of a tyrant, but an incompetent one to boot.
I have this strange notion, we are a democracy. If you can't get the votes, you can't legislate by executive order unless you're a dictator. We're a democracy. We need consensus. Those are the words of Joe Biden. And, no, this isn't a matter of unearthing a clip from the 1980s or 90s in an attempt to play a game of gotcha on some antiquated flip-flop. That's Democratic nominee Biden, less than 3 weeks before the 2020 presidential election, talking to ABC News' George Stephanopoulos about the dangers of governing like a dictator. Joe Biden's Twitter account in October, I have this strange notion, we are a democracy. If you can't get the votes, you can't legislate by executive order unless you're a dictator. We're a democracy.
Come on, loony leftists, come on, defend this shit.
In President Biden's first week alone, he has signed 37 executive orders and actions as of Thursday. That's 33 more than the guy he indirectly referred to as a dictator, in the form of predecessor Donald Trump. It's 32 more than his old boss, Barack Obama, and 37 more than George W. Bush, who signed 0 in his first week as president. With unity we can go do great things, important things, Biden said during his inaugural.
Is anybody feeling unified?
Unity is the path forward. We must meet this moment as the United States of America. We've never failed in America when we've acted together. Without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. No nation, only a state of chaos. This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge, and unity is the path forward, he also said, in a speech lauded by those on both sides of the political aisle. Even the New York Times editorial board is calling on the president to pump the brakes on governing exclusively by executive fiat. Ease up on the executive actions, Joe, read the Thursday headline. President Biden is right to not let his agenda be held hostage, but legislating through Congress is a better path. But Biden's deeds, with more than 36 executive orders and actions, simply have run in direct contrast with his words of unity and compromise. That's a nice way of saying that, at least so far, everything the president promised regarding working with the other side has been utter nonsense, particularly when considering that his party controls the House of Representatives and the Senate. If history is any indication, most executive orders derive from a president's thirst to bypass Congress. And on day one of the new administration, as a specific microcosm that underscores this point best, the Biden team, in a rush to satisfy the thirst of the party's left flank, decided to shut down expansion of the XL Keystone Pipeline and the 11,000 full-time and temporary jobs that went with it. He did this.
Yes, because if you give up more money, they can change the temperature on the fucking planet. But they can't cure homelessness.
Unions that endorsed Biden, including the Teamsters, expressed their dismay with the unilateral decision by the president. The Teamsters strongly oppose yesterday's decision, and we would urge the administration to reconsider it, said Teamsters head Jim Hoffa upon hearing the news. In a related story, Russia and Venezuela will benefit nicely from a Keystone-less U.S. in filling the energy void, while China will be quite pleased that the U.S. rejoined the Beijing-friendly Paris Climate Accord, which was among the 37 executive orders and actions signed. Biden hasn't been asked any direct questions by the press on the job-killing Keystone order, of course. That's what happens when the leader of the free world requires a staffer to call on a predetermined list of invariably friendly reporters, compiled by his team, instead of calling on reporters himself. How friendly. Here's a question around the topic of unity posed to him on Tuesday. Given that unity is such a key part of your message and your promise, can you talk and reflect a little bit more about what is unity when you see it and as you define it? Asked Washington Post White House correspondent Annie Linsky, one of the 6 reporters permitted to question the new president in his first press conference. Note, whenever anyone in power is asked to reflect or define anything, it's an exercise of offering up not just a softball but a beach ball to the person on the receiving end to knock it out of the park. Unity also is trying to reflect what the majority of the American people, Democrat, Republican, Independent, think is within the fulcrum of what needs to be done to make their lives and the lives of Americans better, Biden answered. Ultimately, most executive orders stem from a president's desire to bypass Congress. Biden's actions.
An executive order is only supposed to pertain to how departments run, where laws are already established.
But likely won't get with this administration. In a Harvard Cap/Harris poll taken after Trump took office in 2017, 91% of Americans said they want the two parties to compromise on their principles to get things done, according to Mark Penn, a former senior strategist for President Clinton and later for Hillary Clinton. Penn helped design the poll. President Biden's actions show he isn't terribly interested in what more than 9 in 10 Americans still undoubtedly want. You can't legislate by executive order unless you're a dictator, the 2020 version of Joe Biden said 3 months ago. That guy should say hello to 2021 Biden sometime and ask what exactly has changed since his pre-election remarks. More Americans are now refusing Beer 19 hokey pokeys not because they oppose the shoulder jab, but because they oppose a mandate from a president they do not trust.
Remember, Trump was the dictator, right?
Hokey pokey mandates in a futile effort to boost his sagging poll numbers, this feckless president has only hardened opposition to the hokey pokey. I had Beer 19 in May. My doctor tells me I'm better protected than any hokey pokey. What law gives this president the authority to tell my employer, an airline, to fire me next month if I don't get the hokey pokey? That question was posed this weekend while we waited for a delayed flight. There is no law. The mendacious Mr. Biden's mandate is merely an unprecedented executive power grab. This is the kind of government coercion
it's called communism.
Explained in the book, We Didn't Fight for Socialism, America's Veterans Speak Up. In it, veterans warn how government control over the lives of citizens is the ultimate goal of socialist regimes. The freedoms in our Bill of Rights and the individual liberty that is the cornerstone of our Constitution are anathema to socialists. Freedom and liberty are the antithesis of government coercion and control. When the elected officials and bureaucrats who run the government work for the people, socialist tyranny is impossible. They also describe how socialists use emergency situations to take control over the lives of citizens. In 2008, President Obama's chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, said, "You never let a serious crisis go to waste." And what I mean by that is, it's an opportunity to do things you could not do before. His use of the word "you" was wrong. He meant we. Apparently, then Vice President Joe Biden understood. He and the leftist ideologues now pulling his strings took Emanuel's advice. Beer 19 gave them the serious crisis they craved. Once government gains control over any aspect of individual citizens' lives, it does not easily surrender such power. Victor Davis.
They'll just think up another emergency.
In an interview with Dinesh D'Souza on October 17, 2021, stated, "The left has declared war on the very idea of citizenship. According to our Constitution, elected officials serve at the pleasure of our citizens. But to Joe Biden,
they haven't figured that out yet.
Individual citizens are but mindless chess pieces to be manipulated by government." Rahm Emanuel admitted a crisis allows government to do things it otherwise could not do. Prior to the Beer 19 pandemic, A president might well have been impeached for insisting employers fire.
Another thing, Corncob, I think should be in place, that you shouldn't be allowed to vote until you have a certificate that you took a civics class.
Mandate. But, like all his socialist predecessors, Joe Biden unleashed a powerful propaganda campaign to deceive, distort, divide, and destroy opponents with fear. His pliant allies in the so-called mainstream media aided this strategy. That's why Mr. Biden used an executive order instead of congressional legislation to impose his fire them rule. Sadly, it's not over yet. The book also warns about the terrible history of socialist tyrants' unrelenting pursuit of government control even when results are disastrous. This is most likely the case with Biden's hokey-pokey mandate. Today, businesses are shutting down because they cannot attract or keep a sufficient number of employees, while Biden mandates are wreaking havoc on our already faltering economy by causing irreplaceable personnel to quit or be fired. Hence, there are some people who believe we may need a draft in the military. His stupid mandate. Are you ready to deploy to fight for Ukraine? I've already done my time. For the United States. This is unconscionable. Americans cannot be fired for their religion, skin color, age, medical condition, or sexual orientation, but Biden orders them fired for...
You actually get points if you have a weird sexual orientation.
This is socialist tyranny. As a U.S. Senator, Joe Biden was known as a political moderate. When he ran for president in 2020, he portrayed himself as the Democrats' middle-of-the-road candidate, a man who could work with both sides of the aisle and unite Americans of all political persuasions. However, when being a moderate wasn't helping his chances of winning the nomination, candidate Biden quickly switched horses in midstream, adopting the far-left platform of socialist Bernie Sanders. This move won him the Democrats' nomination and made him beholden to the radical left wing of the Democrat Party. Do you want proof? He appointed a man with a mental illness to be in charge of your family's health, that includes mental health. It also called into question Joe Biden's judgment, a subject tackled quite capably by award-winning journalist Caroline Glick in her column Joe Biden's Catastrophic Judgment. For example, concerning his judgment in handling the U.S. exit from Afghanistan, Ms. Glick
Holy fuck.
Judgment was never reasoned or fact-based and he was catastrophically wrong. She also makes the equally valid point that once the president adopts a position he is unwilling to listen to counterargument and he will not rethink his choices or positions, even after they have failed.
You think, that's the problem, not the think.
Catastrophic handling of foreign affairs, her insights applied just as directly to his domestic socialist agenda, an agenda he pig-headedly adheres to even as it proves to be as much a disaster as the Afghanistan bug-out. In foreign affairs, Biden has proven to be a bumbling incompetent. On the home front, he has become a socialist tyrant in the mold of Hugo Chavez. Veterans warned this would happen in their book We Didn't Fight for Socialism, America's Veterans Speak Up. In this book, they laid out the socialist agenda President Biden would inflict on our country point by point. To date he has checked every box on their list. They warned how
I think I have too.
Government agencies are weaponized and used to suppress citizen dissent. True to form, Joe Biden and his Attorney General, Merrick Garland, have directed the FBI to treat parents who oppose the teaching of critical race theory, CRT, as domestic terrorists. As a result, this once highly respected agency is now viewed by many Americans as a bunch of jackboot thugs. In addition to weaponizing the FBI, the president has proposed banks be required to report citizens who spend more than $600 to the IRS so the government can monitor their spending. They warned how in socialist countries out-of-control government spending invariably leads to raging inflation and a burdensome national debt. Not surprisingly, with Biden pushing a tax and spend socialist agenda, prices of essential goods and services have skyrocketed, if you can get them at all, and the national debt...
But according to the loony left, that's not Sniffy Joe's fault.
In spite of this and proving the accuracy of Caroline Glick's comments, President Biden refuses to scrap his misnamed $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill, a bill even moderate Democrats reject. They warned that in socialist countries, the work ethic is replaced by an entitlement mentality in which people who are perfectly capable of working instead choose to remain idle and expect the government to provide for all their needs. With Biden pushing a socialist agenda in which Americans of prime working age are paid stimulus dollars as part of the misnamed American Rescue Act, people are choosing to stay home rather than work. The president's socialist policies have created the unprecedented phenomenon known as the Great Walkout, in which working age...
Yeah, because printing a shit ton of money won't cause inflation at all. Remember that one there, Grumpy?
In every sector of our economy. The last U.S. military aircraft to leave Afghanistan took off at 3:29 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on August 30, 2021. According to President Biden, this flight officially ended America's longest war. Unfortunately, the Biden administration's evacuation of American citizens and allies from Afghanistan was so blatantly incompetent, callously negligent, and knowingly incomplete it is a stain on the very soul of our nation. President Biden...
And what's he do right after that? Gets us involved in another war. Way to vote, you fucking retards.
A long overdue welcome home celebration for American troops into a deadly cesspool of grief, betrayal, and shame. The loss of American military personnel and loyal Afghans in this long war are sad beyond words. So too are the imminent deaths of those left behind by a president who claimed no Americans or allies would be left behind.
Trump evacuated 10,000 troops without a hiccup, except for he didn't tell his generals until after he told the American people he was going to do it.
The only promises Joe Biden kept throughout his botched exit from Afghanistan have been to the Taliban. All we the people have gotten from our befuddled president is deception, distortion, and spin. He repeatedly looked into television cameras and insisted, "No Americans will be left behind in Afghanistan." We now know hundreds were left behind. He told us the Taliban would refrain from taking revenge on Afghans loyal to America. We now know Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Haqqani death squads are searching house to house for those who helped us. When found, they and their families are barbarically murdered. According to American Humane, the Taliban even killed U.S. military working dogs left behind in Biden's bug-out. President Biden claims our homeland is now safer than ever. Not so. Transnational terrorist organizations have been emboldened and will be armed with American weapons left behind.
$85 billion worth.
Iran and North Korea are already using Biden's botched exit from Afghanistan against us. Mr. Biden says the U.S. has lost no credibility with our allies.
Are you fucking kidding me?
The British Parliament holds him in contempt for incompetence, and other allies are furious he pulled the plug on Afghanistan without consulting them. Biden and his lackeys still insist the sudden downfall of the Afghan military and government could not have been predicted. But we now know it was predicted, and the Biden administration ignored the warning. Biden's press secretary, Jen Psaki, took Fox News reporter, Peter Doocy, to task when he asked if Americans were stranded in Afghanistan. We now know American citizens were beaten, had documents seized and were detained at Taliban checkpoints, preventing them from reaching the airport until too late. They are stranded. Psaki, apparently unable to distinguish between spin and outright lying, tried to tamp down a controversy by
if you're working for Sniffy Joe, it's a lie.
In the Washington Post, which claimed the Taliban offered to halt outside Kabul, but the Biden administration welcomed them into the city because all the U.S. needed was the airport. If true, this unconscionable decision allowed the Taliban to block access to the only means of escape for Americans and loyal Afghans not yet at the airport. In his deceptive address to the nation on August 1st, Mr. Biden insisted, "We have enormous leverage over the Taliban to ensure they will allow American citizens and our Afghan allies to exit the country." We do not. The Taliban have all the leverage they need, hundreds of American hostages. The Biden administration's deceit is so blatant and habitual, truth has become another casualty of the long war in Afghanistan.
Complete lying prick.
I'm really tired of hearing this from the ghost white, need to get some sun, loony leftist cult members. Well, America was built on stolen land. Okay. And if the Native Americans, my ancestors, had and enforced immigration laws, that shit wouldn't have happened. I've learned my lesson, close the fucking border. Oh, wait a minute. I have a new joke. I send this to my Brazilian friends and tell them this is how we actually won the American Revolution. And if you don't think that's fucking funny, you're a douche. Anyway, well, that's tonight's podcast. No loony leftist. I mean, I actually had sound effects ready for that too. I'm still waiting for that first loony leftist to come in here and try and outdo me. I have the perfect for the first time the perfect sound effect for that as well.
This is the moment we've all been waiting for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Let's get ready to rumble!
Still fucking waiting. Well, I guess the internet or my software was screwing up. Anyway, I'll call it a show and see you next week. And hey, if you guys got topics, man, send it to me. I can find shit out about anything. And it pisses the loony left off. That might kind of be why they don't come over here, but so every Saturday, 7 p.m. I have nothing better to do. This is my except for driving classes recently, but every Saturday, 7 p.m. I have nothing better to do. This is my so. Hasta la pizza. Hope to see y'all next week, or as many as I have, and hopefully more. We'll have more as people figure out he actually knows his shit. Hasta la pizza. Hope to see y'all next week, or as many as I have, and hopefully more. We'll have more as people figure out he actually knows his shit. Saturdays I trash your party. You hate Trump, Biden shot it. You tell every kid you see that you are gay. Science makes you mad, indictments make you glad. For 8 years now we've got 'em, that's all you said. Biology is just too much, so the doctors cut off your nuts, and you think that you are a babe. You call me names and swear at me because you changed the way you be, and I don't want I know I'm right. You're fucking crazy. And tonight I'm gonna prove just how much you ain't too bright. You're kinda lazy. I know you're wrong. I know I'm right. You're fucking